Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I am Scribelight, and now I'm going to talk about Loki, Episode 3. And I want to propose something. I don't know if this is even a metaphor or a theory that has previously been stated in Hollywood or story writing or otherwise, but it just came to me seconds before I started this. I want to discuss the riddle of Gilligan's Island. The riddle of Gilligan's Island is, how do you tell a compelling series of tales where the protagonists start and end in exactly the same place as they began? Because otherwise, you're in trouble. And this is how you can tell when an episode series risks being a filler episode. And that is, in what position were the protagonists at the beginning of the episode, and where are they at the end of the episode? If they are in exactly the same spot at the end as they began, the big question is, was anything in between worth the watch? That is the riddle of Gilligan's Island. Each episode, if you have a situation like that, has to, in and of itself, be interesting. You can have a series where the characters get nowhere from episode to episode, as long as sandwiched between is worth watching. And episode 3 of Loki does not do that. Let's walk slowly through these next few minutes, shall we? So the episode begins as we left off, sort of. We get some intervening scene where Lady Loki is talking to the TVA soldier at a bar or at a restaurant. And this is quickly revealed to be some sort of psychological ploy in order to interrogate the TVA agent about how to find the timekeepers. This is the same TVA agent that was found at the end of the last episode who was mumbling to herself about how she gave away where the timekeepers are. Of course, it's curious to me how a low-level grunt in the TVA would have any knowledge of how to find the timekeepers when the knowledge of the timekeepers' current status and existence and everything else seems like a big secret even to Agent Mobius, and he has to ask the head of the TVA or the director or something for any information there-wise. But anyway, so yes, Lady Loki is psychically interrogating TVA agent for information on how to find the timekeepers. This only becomes relevant in a brief exchange with Loki later on in the episode. It has nothing to do with the show, save for, I guess, letting us know that Lady Loki knows something that Loki does not know. Oh, and they finally give Lady Loki a first name, Sylvie. Sylvie, the name of the enchantress from the Young Masters in the comic books. Now, who are the Young Masters? Why, they were the Masters of Evil, but the young team, sort of like the Young Avengers or the young team of the Avengers. Well, there was a girl named Sylvie who was enchanted with powers akin to those of the Enchantress from Asgard. Whether she was the real Enchantress or not, I don't know. I have the comic book collection of the Young Avengers where that happened. But they've given Lady Loki, who is a Loki, but doesn't want to be considered a Loki, but who is taking on the name of a completely different character in the comic books. Anyway, so I'll be referring to her as Sylvie for the sake of ease, I suppose, as compared to Loki. Anyway, so we have that little thing where it's like, okay, this is how Lady Loki takes over people's minds. She goes into their head, she makes them have some sort of dream, and then she interrogates them Inception style, kind of, sort of, whatever. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, and then we jump back to where we left off, literally in the last episode, where Lady Loki has escaped through the time portal, and Loki followed behind. I said Lady Loki again, didn't I? Anyway, they end up back at the TVA. And then Loki retrieves his daggers while Sylvie is off headed towards the director's office, I guess. And I just want to note that as we get into this brief action sequence where Loki and Sylvie are fighting various TVA guards and alternately incinerating them or just knocking them out, Loki, Tom Hiddleston, does his stand up straight, throw his head back, ready for combat maneuver like 3 or 4 times within a 5-minute span. It's just noticeable. I mean, okay, once in a while in a dramatic moment, okay, but it happened over and over again. And it's just like, dude, tone it down. Or editor or somebody, just, Anyway, so they get to the director's office. They start mouthing off to each other and getting ready to fight each other. They fight each other. He gets the upper hand. She gets the upper hand. La-di-da. The director shows up, and then they escape through a time portal to parts unknown. And here's where we hit the Gilligan's Island, or the riddle of Gilligan's Island. But before I get there, thank you, Officer Buck. Hi. Well, hi, Officer Buck. Hope you're doing good. They end up on a planet called... I gotta bring this up because the name is just ridiculous. What was it again? I have the episode in front of me for ease of purpose here. What was it? Come on. Oh, yes. Lamentus. Such creative names. Just, this planet is named Despair. This planet is named Lamentus. Let's all go to Malachor. Just, okay. Anyway, so they're on Lamentus 1. One of the several apocalypses that Sylvie had set aside as hiding places where she could be wherever and not set off any TVA tripwires. The situation on Lamentus 1 is that a moon, or a planet, whichever, is about to crash into Lamentus 1 and destroy it forever in a grand cataclysm. And all the population on the entire planet will be destroyed, etc. So we end up on this purple planet with asteroids falling all around. And then Loki and Sylvie run back and forth from shelter to shelter, and they start arguing like an old married couple. And the whole driving plot of this episode is that the remote control that could open up the time portal, or a time portal, to get them out of this situation, its battery is dead. So they need to charge the battery of the remote control. That is the driving force of this episode. They need to get off the planet, or else they're just going to be destroyed. And their only way out is this dead battery remote control. All right, so they start out the episode on the purple planet with it about to be destroyed. Okay? Okay. Well, then we proceed on a bit of a ridiculous road comedy where we wander through the purple desert with Loki and Sylvie as they argue and wax philosophic about their nature, their being Lokis, but she doesn't want to be called Loki. She wanted to get away from that. So now she's just a completely different character, just female, which is also irrelevant. They also seem to have completely different power sets because, she doesn't understand his illusions/magic, and he doesn't understand his taking over people's minds, which makes absolutely no sense because we saw Loki take over people's minds in the previous films. And not with the Mind Stone, mind you. Remember when Loki was in the mind of Dr. Selvig? Right? Remember that part before the whole Mind Stone thing happened? Yeah, okay, so why is it that Loki doesn't suddenly understand how mind control works? Apparently now he doesn't know how mind control works. Unless the Loki we are following in this show is himself a variant of the Loki we were following in movies, and he never did time control, which makes that, or mind control, which makes no sense. Thank you, Mark S. I think this show has potential if it doesn't detour like Falcon and Winter Soldier did. I'm not offended by this show yet. I'm offended by its absolute pointlessness in the narrative so far, but I'm getting to that. So now, insofar as getting hit over the head with political rhetoric or social lectures and such, you're right. There's none of that so far in any particular meaningful way in this show. There's not. I'm not being lectured to. But heck, given what I'm being handed in this show, I might actually welcome a lecture. We don't get lectures, we get philosophical conversations about love and childhood and mothers and long periods of time where I'm counting off the seconds where nothing is being said and nothing is happening. But we will get there. But thank you, Marquez. Okay, so they go wandering through the purple desert, arguing about their various situations and their ambitions and everything, and being snide at each other because they hate each other, but they need each other because he's got Loki has the remote control and isn't going to give it back, and she's the only one who knows how to use it or charge it up, and so they need each other for this little adventure. They go wandering through an abandoned town because, well, there's 12 hours or less before the moon hits the planet and destroys everything. So every person who all happen to be human beings on this alien planet are all evacuating. So they happen upon a little shack, which they, for some reason, from the outside, believe to be inhabited. And they go up to talk to the inhabitants to find out what's going on and where things are, even though one would think that Sylvie, having chose this location as an escape point and who already knew the name of the planet when they arrived, would already have this information. In fact, over the course of the show, we find out that she already knows the fate of everything on this planet. And unless it's some sort of grand ploy, why do we even have to go to this house to find out information about where to go to get off the planet? Sylvie already knows. So there's major narrative contradiction number one of several. Anyway, they go to this house. Sylvie decides to kick down the door and is promptly shot with a, I don't know, force gun, sound gun, nothing that actually does any damage. It just pushes her away. And then Loki decides to go all trickster and disguise himself as the occupant's presumably dead husband. And that doesn't, the same thing happens. She shoots him. It was completely telegraphed that was going to happen. And then they find out from old lady who's willing to sit out the apocalypse, sort of like, there was a guy, I forget what his name was. I think his name was actually Harry Truman, although not that Harry Truman, obviously, who sat out the explosion of Mount St. Helens. He was just like, I'm not going to leave my home. And so his home was at like the foot of the mountain before it blew up. So this lady's kind of like a Harry Truman character. Thank you, Okie Native. This is proof lizard people exist or bad writing. Well, it's bad writing. Lizard people existing would actually be interesting and creative, unlike this episode. But thank you, Okie Native. And thank you, Lancelot, 652. Isn't this show only 6 episodes? Everything I hear is that it seems to be going nowhere, just wasting that time. With every episode so far, it is telling me that they had about 2 episodes worth of story. Right? Because the first episode, a lot of exposition, a lot of setup. Okay, and maybe something worthwhile in there. Second episode, there's about 10 minutes in there abouts that you could say is worthwhile. This episode, nothing. I mean, maybe you could get away with about 5 minutes worth of content in this that actually was interesting, new information or relevant, but otherwise not. Now, this is reminding me in a ridiculous way like the Netflix series, except that it's sort of like even worse. Like the Netflix series, save for the first season of Daredevil, and I've said this on many occasions on the previous reviews of these shows, especially Jessica Jones and other things, you'd have 13 episodes that covered about 5 or 6 episodes worth of content. So much filler, so much repetition, so much unnecessary whatever's going on that you could have condensed most of those shows down to about 5 or 6 episodes, saved yourself a lot of time, a much better story. This one, you've got 6 episodes, and so far I haven't seen more than an episode and a quarter worth of actual interesting narrative value, which is just, it's depressing. I mean, you've got Loki, for God's sakes. You've got 50, 60 years worth of comic book plot lines, for crying out loud. And we're 3 episodes in and diddly squat in relative terms. But I digress. Anyway, so they find out from the lady in the shack information that Sylvie presumably already possesses, in which they have to go to a train station to get to a city where there is a giant ark, because on this futuristic technological alien planet, there's only one ship off the rock. And there's no other civilizations. I mean, it looks like this is some kind of like a glorified mining colony. So there's not some corporate interest involved here, or they just abandoned everybody here. I don't know. It's obviously left up in the air, not explained, but apparently there's only one way off this rock, and it's the Ark. So we go to a train station. And of course, in a situation where you have 12 hours left until the end of everything and everybody's going to die no matter what, you've got a Krypton type event coming. You've got asteroids falling all over the place, earthquakes, ground cracking, moon falling on you. Yeah, the safest place you want to be is on a moving train, on tracks, in the future sci-fi world. Anyway, so they walk upon this train station, and everything's within walking distance, mind you. You know, from where they landed, from the time portal, to the town, to the shack, to the train station, and later on to the Ark. Everything's within reasonable walking distance, with some 12 hours or so left in existence. They get to the train station, and there is an orderly line of people waiting to get on the train, except that they won't get on the train because the train's just about full. You have to have a ticket to get on the train at the end of the world, and people are just waiting relatively orderly in a queue to get on the train. And Loki and Sylvie bicker about how they're going to get on the train. Oh my God, you got 2 godlings with magical powers, and they're not quite sure how they're going to get on a train. Eventually, they figure it out, kind of, sort of. Loki disguises himself as a guard using his magic, and then Sylvie mind controls one of the guards to let them on the train. Okay. Now, mind you, Sylvie is still dressed up like Loki. She's got the little horny helmet and her battle suit on. And now Loki is wearing a guard's outfit, the only guard, save for the one at the train who has his visor up. But anyway, so they get on the train and they sit down like they are passengers, except that Loki is still dressed up as a guard. So that's not suspicious. Her having a horned helmet is not suspicious, but okay. So they start kibitzing about their various lives, because they each have had a different life, because they're each variants on the same theme. And they start talking about their mother, or their lack of a mother. And Loki starts reminiscing about how good his mother was. And we have a nice, long, emotional, heartfelt scene between 2 supervillains getting ready to take a train off to the end of the world, leaving a whole bunch of people behind who are going to die. Now, why would I bring that up? We just saw in the last episode Loki going off to Pompeii and sort of like dancing and laughing as he knew everybody in Pompeii was going to be killed. Well, I bring that up for a reason, but I'll get back to that later. And thank you, Oki Native. Decades of lore, and they picked the TVA, which was a dong measuring contest between the cover artists and the writers. Ha, make a story from this BS. Yeah, I've got an issue or 2 of the whole Timequake, Timekeeper arc in my collection somewhere, and I wasn't that compelled by it back then either. But hey, this is Disney Marvel, creatively corrupt at this point, as far as I can tell. And thank you again, Officer Buck. Wouldn't want to be discourteous at the end of the world. I guess not. You know, I mean, I applaud all those people being so polite to wait in line for a ticket to a train they're not going to get on to the end of the world, and not, you know, cause a riot or anything, and be so, again, relatively civil. Good on them. Anyway, so they bluff their way onto the train, and then sit down and have this long heart-to-heart conversation about their variant lives as Lokis and so on, and nothing happens. and nobody cares. And then they talk about what love is and what is love. And oh, it's just so insightful to the character of Loki. And boy, oh boy, we're really getting to know Loki. And so then Sylvie decides to take a nap. And in the intervening time, Loki is now singing a Norse song, I'm guessing. That's my guess. I don't speak the language. But anyway, somehow the people on the train both know how to sing along to the lyrics. And there's a girl on the train with some kind of like sort of bass or something, violin kind of deal that she's playing. What's the word I'm looking for? My mind suddenly escapes me. Anyway, she's playing along to the tune of a song that has to come from a different planet and a different culture and a different time, but no, everybody's singing along. And the only thing I'll say is that Tom Hiddleston is an amazingly talented individual. I mean, I'd be fine just if they just isolated that soundtrack, that song of him singing. It was enjoyable. Had nothing to do with anything. Brought up a whole lot more questions than it answered about things, but yeah, he's a very talented guy. And as Sylvie wakes up to watch Loki finish singing this song, one of the patrons on the train, looking suspicious at the two of them, stands up and walks out. Now, never mind that Sylvie's been wearing a Loki costume this whole time, but Sylvie then criticizes Loki for having changed out of his guard outfit back to his regular TVA clothes. Why is Loki still wearing his TVA clothes when he can pick any outfit he's ever seen ever to just make himself look like he's wearing? I don't know, but that's what he did apparently between Sylvie falling asleep and him doing the song and dance number. Thank you, Lancelot 652, but this Loki's mom hasn't died yet. Well, Sylvie indicates that she never knew her mother. We don't know what that means. So, like, in her reality, mom died before she was grown, or she's lying, or I don't know. For all the time that they spend talking, strangely enough, the only person who actually reveals much of anything about themselves is Loki and not Sylvie, as is brought up later on in the episode by Loki. But anyway, so suspicious guy on train, because only now is he suspicious. It wasn't that the guard was sitting chatting with a person at the table and drinking champagne earlier. That wasn't suspicious. Now, singing and dancing and getting through a song number wearing not the same clothes he came on to the train with, now that's suspicious. But also it's suspicious enough that it overrides any other concern or thought about what's going on literally above their heads as the moon is going to crash into the planet and kill everybody in about 10 hours or less. But hey, we have to worry about stowaways on the train at this point. So then the guards show up and they ask them for their tickets. Where's your tickets? This is the priority, remember, on the train going to the end of the world. And of course, they don't have their tickets. So then we have a fight breakout, because of course we have a fight breakout. And everybody's fighting. And then Loki throws some people out the window. And then Loki gets thrown out the window. But Loki has the remote control to the time portal that they still need to recharge. And the only place they can find a power source powerful enough to recharge a tiny little remote control thing is the actual Ark. This is why we're going to the Ark in the first place. Not to escape the planet, but apparently the only thing that has the power necessary to charge up this tiny little remote control is whatever mega nuclear reactor thing is on the Ark, which says Sylvie. Okay, that's why we're going to the thing in the first place. I forgot to mention that bit because it's very, very important. It's the MacGuffin here. So Loki gets thrown out the train, and Sylvie jumps out after him because, well, he's got the remote control, and without the remote control, they can't escape Doom. I wish it was Dr. Doom, but it's not. Anyway, so they get out of the train. Now they're walking to the Ark because in the fall, the remote control in Loki's pocket or whatever busted. So now they don't have the remote control. So now they decide, well, our only option to survive this is to get on that Ark. And Sylvie's like, but the Ark is destroyed with everything else on this planet. They don't escape. You remember the information that Sylvie somehow didn't know or have any knowledge of prior to things? Like she knew what happened, but she didn't know the location of stuff, which is why they had to ask the old lady. Anyway, so they decide we're going to go off and save the Ark. You know, because we're here and we know what they don't, sort of. So we're going to go to the Ark and make sure it gets off the planet because, you know, we're two godlings with magical powers. And over the course of this next walk from point A to point B, Loki asks her about mind control. How does it work? How does mind control work? Asks Loki, the god of mischief, who has mind controlled lots and lots of people before. A power he does not possess, apparently, says he somehow. In the vastness of his magical training, he has no idea how mind control works. Okay, anyway, so she explains to him the whole fantasy thing inside their head and that kind of deal, which flashes back to the beginning of the episode where we watched her in the bar with the TVA chick. And yeah, very exciting stuff. Okay. Is anything happening here? No, they're just talking and debating and arguing. And there's at one point at which where after the remote control is broken, before they've realized their only option is go to the Ark, they're sitting down on effectively just a lump of dirt. And there are, I mean, I sat there counting off, you know, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000 bits of time where nothing is being said. Nothing is happening. You know, there's, and it wasn't like it was filled up with some kind of emotional tension. You can have silence be a very powerful delivery mechanism for storytelling if there is something happening within that silence. And yet, time after time in this episode, you have moments and moments going by of nothing happening. And it's just, okay. So anyway, they trek their way off to the only city left standing, which is, you know, it looks kind of like if Blade Runner was combined with Deadwood, which is actually kind of an interesting combination if you think about it. So there's the Ark off in the distance, right? The big giant spaceship that's going to take everybody off the planet who I guess can afford it. And they walk into this town and, you know, the world's coming to an end, right? Okay, well, all the lights are on. People are still milling about. There's still guards around and so on. And then all of a sudden, well, then I guess somebody pulled the trigger because then it starts really getting destroyed. All the asteroids falling down. And so they're running around the city looking for shelter from the asteroids falling down. And in the middle of this, remember, they were thrown off a train several minutes ago, at least, if not a couple of hours. We don't know how much time has passed between getting thrown off the train and them walking to this city. But as they're running around, as everybody's running for shelter from the falling apart of reality and the world and the moon, the local police try to stop them and apprehend them. Why? What? We have to have a fight scene in the middle of the sky falling. Uh-oh. Can you hear the sirens? The cops are coming for me now. But the cops start attacking Loki and Sylvie. Like they're trying to arrest them. Like they know who they are. Like they have any context for what they've done or anything else. And besides which, the world's coming to an end. Who cares? Like, well, why? I kept asking myself, well, why is this happening? This doesn't make any sense at all. Okay, so now somewhere in there, and I apologize that I'm off a little bit, somewhere in there, they see that the Ark is getting ready to launch, and there's still all these people around. And Loki says, they're just going to leave them here. As though Loki gives a one single shit about innocent life at this point. Are you kidding me? He was throwing cops out the window of a moving train. He walked straight by desperate individuals waiting in line to get on said train. He was laughing and dancing at the inevitable deaths of everyone in Pompeii in the last episode. Oh, but all of a sudden Loki's gained a conscience? Or some kind of I don't know, moral center? What are you talking about? Are you kidding me? Anyway, and then, surprise, surprise, because, with the sky falling and everything else, the Ark is destroyed. Big asteroid falls through the Ark, destroys it right in front of them. And here we come back to the riddle of Gilligan's Island. Where are we at the end of the episode? Why, Loki and Sylvie trapped on a planet that's about to explode. Where did we start the episode? Loki and Sylvie on a planet that's about to explode. And they are in the exact same position they were in when it began. They don't have a working time remote control. They have nowhere to go. They have no other resources. They're stuck exactly where they started. And nothing in between those bookends was interesting or mattered or moved the story along in any way, shape, or form. We know that they're going to escape this. There's 3 episodes left. This is technically the climax, right? We're in the middle, right? We're the end of the second act, effectively, more or less, if that is what this is. I don't even know where we're at this point. But either way, we know they get out of this. There's no suspense there. So it was all for nothing. It's not as if every episode has them stuck on the island and it's just their adventure in between the beginning and the end of the episode that's the interesting part. No. We know that this is not the end of the story because we're not idiots. So whatever just happened here and the Ark being destroyed effectively means nothing for the fate of our heroes because they're going to get out of this. Whether it's Mobius coming in at the last second to rescue them or some other, mechanism. So there's no suspense. Nothing is gained. Nothing is learned. And ridiculous things happen in between that make absolutely no sense. This was the epitome of the filler episode. I talked about last time how so much of that episode was filler, save for like the last 5 minutes. But there's absolutely nothing redeeming about this episode in propelling the story forward at all. And on all of the time spent philosophizing and waxing over what it was to have a mother and what love is and this, that, and the other, and discussing our various selves and what does it mean to be a Loki and blah, da, blah, da, blah, da, blah, da, blah. It doesn't matter. Pointless. Absolutely pointless. And again, having watched this, and I said it before, you have 60 some odd years of storylines and ideas that have been pre-written for you. Hell, they've been storyboarded for you. And this is the best you can come up with? Really? Do you guys care? I don't know. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating if you can't tell. So that is basically it. That's where the episode ended. Now, as a happy little warrior, I will, of course, watch the next episode because just to keep informed. But man, it's just been downhill with these Disney Plus series so far. WandaVision was all right. It was all right. The ending, very Brady Bunch, which I guess might be appropriate to the theme of the whole show. It was okay. Again, that was a show that had more episodes than it did real story. Right? And that seems to be the running theme here, is they keep trying to pad these things out further than they actually have content for, which again is an absolute travesty given the treasure trove of material they have to draw from. That they keep running into a situation of having more time than they can realistically fill with quality, let's say. Then you had the Winter Soldier, or Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was just an absolute train wreck, left, right, and center, with all of the lecturing and political jargon and trying to make sympathetic characters out of the terrorists and all the racial stuff. It just, and now this, and of all the characters, of all the one-off characters, Loki, you can't find anything to do with him narratively, character development, nothing. Really? Anyway, we got 3 episodes left. Oh, who knows? Maybe they'll pick it up. You know, maybe they saved all the best stuff for the last act or the last half. I don't know. I suppose we'll find out. I'll take a minute or two to go over any comments you guys might have. Ham and Beans, how do you have a filler episode in a 6-episode arc? I don't know. I mean, I'll give them a kind of credit. I'll give them a backhanded compliment. It takes talent. It takes talent to come up with nothing to do with this character and this IP when you have 6 episodes to do it in. I just, I'm thinking back, there's a great series on Netflix, if you haven't seen it, called The Last Kingdom. And each episode runs about an hour, thereabouts, right? But the storytelling and the pacing and the characters and the events are just so, it's amazing. It's compelling. It's interesting. It's exciting. It's funny. It's scary. It's everything you'd ask for. And I remember time and time again watching that show. I get to the end of an episode thinking that was only an hour, because it felt like I was watching a whole movie. And maybe that's just me. Maybe somebody else watching it won't have that experience. But the thing is, you can have a single episode of a show do amazing things inside an hour or so with the right storytelling and the right pacing. You really can. You can have a whole full-length feature film's worth of entertainment and storytelling in a short amount of time if you know what you're doing. And I sat through this episode and nothing, right? Because it's always the sort of the Godfather thing, right? The Godfather's about a 3-hour-long film. And it sets up a world, it sets up a situation, it establishes so many characters, so many memorable moments. It's like this epic thing. And yeah, 3 hours is a lot of real estate to work within. But it's only 3 hours, right? Do I have any notion that by the end of the Loki series, which will make up, I'll be conservative because each episode's not exactly an hour long, but let's just say, I'll be nice. I'll say 4.5 hours. Okay, that's probably more than that. But yeah, okay, 4.5 hours worth of real estate to tell a story. Do you have any notion that the 4.5 hour story of Loki is going to come anywhere near Godfather Part 1 at all? Same amount of time, right? Same amount of time in which to tell a story. No, of course not. Of course not. And granted, not everything can be the Mona Lisa. Godfather is lightning in a bottle kind of thing. But even if you could get half as good as The Godfather in 3 hours, that'd be something. With all the money and all the talent and all the information to draw from for a series like this, 4.5 hours of Loki is going to feel like about 2 hours worth of material. I guarantee it. Because at this point, I haven't been proven wrong. I haven't been proven wrong. Let's see. Okay, Native again. So 2 near-god level beings who have the combined powers of frost giants and the magic of Asgard can't recharge some future tech batteries to get. No. Nope. And this remote control needs a power source to recharge it that is apparently something akin to a nuclear reactor. I guess. So there you go. But here's the other thing. The really funny part, I suppose. Sylvie mentions how her plan to overthrow the TVA or whatever had been years in the making. and she didn't charge the batteries on her remote control before she left off on her grand adventure. She didn't have any notion there'd be any reason to have that thing fully charged. It had one jump left in it by the time they got back to the TVA. She didn't notice back at the hurricane that the thing had one charge left. Okay. Whole lot of very convenient forgetfulness things in this episode. Boy, oh boy. But anybody? That's what I meant. Anyway, everybody, because my brain likes smushing words together lately. Remember Dempublicans last night or whatever I said? Or Republicrats? Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for this rant of mine. I hope you found it informative and entertaining. If you'd like to hear more from me or from Satsu 2 Cents, you can find the two of us tonight, Wednesday night, on Satsu 2 Cents' channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for The Lords of the Night, where we will go over the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. And as well, look forward to tomorrow on Thursday, where you can find me on this channel with another episode of TED Excellence, where I'll be going over yet another amazing event at a TEDx talk that I'm sure will be educational and fantastic and informative and terrific. I call them edu-fantastic and intelli-terrific. Everyone, I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.